15 Facts You Didn't Know About the Spider-Man Movies. Spider-Man is among the audience's favorite superheroes, hugely popular among children and teenagers. And while this character, originally created by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, has been featured in many movies and franchises over the years, the most well-known has probably been the separate series, starring Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and Tom Holland. The character is so popular he even has managed to spin it into a successful animated series focusing on the character Miles Morales, and a series putting his villains like Venom, Morbius, and Kraven front and center. Spider-Man mania is high, following the release of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse earlier this summer, and the video game Spider-Man 2 arriving on PS5. This article has been updated by Jack Deegan with more fun facts about the character's movies. The character has had a rich, long cinematic life. That also means there are plenty of behind-the-scenes stories and fun facts about the wall crawler that many people might not know. Some of it is well known, like James Cameron's attempt at directing a Spider-Man movie in the 1990s, or Sony and Marvel making a historic deal to put Spider-Man in the MCU. Yet here are some of the lesser-known facts about the Spider-Man film franchise that you might not know. 1. Chris Columbus could have directed Spider-Man. The Spider-Man trilogy, directed by Sam Raimi, could have gone in a very different direction, as it was initially offered to Chris Columbus, director of films such as Home Alone and Mrs. Doubtfire. Yet, as eager as the filmmaker was to headline that movie, he got another offer simultaneously that he couldn't turn down: Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, by Screen Rant. This production certainly propelled Columbus' career even further, and while he had a hard time turning down Spider-Man as he had been waiting his whole life for such a movie, he doesn't regret choosing Harry Potter. 2. Somebody stole Tobey Maguire's costume. During the production of Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man film, a massive investigation took place, which cost the studio hundreds of thousands of dollars. For different Spider-Man costumes mysteriously went missing one day with no trace of how it happened. Each suit cost around $50,000 to make, so it was a high priority for the studio to recover them. They put out a reward of $25,000 to anyone who found them, and hoped they would make their way back to set. The investigation went on for a total of 18 months before they found a former security guard had stolen them after his ex-wife tipped the authorities off. The suits had ended up around the world in Los Angeles, New York, and Tokyo in the hands of unknowing collectors, and had finally been recovered. 3. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse broke a Disney record at the Academy Awards. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse took the world by surprise. The 2018 animated film focusing on Miles Morales wowed critics and audiences alike with its breathtaking animation and an even better script. While for a time it was the lowest-grossing Spider-Man-related project, that title now belongs to Morbius. The movie clearly had an audience as it was getting positive word of mouth. It also was a late contender for the Academy Awards. Nobody expected the film to beat the frontrunner, Incredibles 2, for Best Animated Picture at the Academy Awards. Yet the movie walked away with the coveted prize. That, combined with the fact that Black Panther was nominated for Best Picture at that very same year, solidified the superhero genre as a legitimate genre worth of awards recognition. The movie also became the first non-Disney-related animated film to win Best Animated Film in over 7 years. 4. J.K. Simmons went down in history with his character. In Sam Raimi's trilogy, J.K. Simmons played J. Jonah Jameson, editor-in-chief of the Daily Bugle newspaper. Over time, this character became one of the public's favorites, which is why fans went wild upon seeing him reprise his role in Spider-Man Far From Home. By making this appearance, Simmons became the first Marvel actor from a non-MCU movie to reprise his role in the MCU. In order to achieve the wow factor in theaters, his addition to the cast was top secret. Not even the actors themselves were informed of it. Simmons would later reprise his role as J. Jonah Jameson in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse as the version of the character in multiple other universes. The implication is that in the Spider-Verse, all J. Jonah Jameson is J.K. Simmons. 5. No CGI was involved in the iconic cafeteria scene. One of the most memorable scenes from the Spider-Man movie is Peter Parker catching Mary Jane and her entire lunch tray after she slipped. Contrary to popular belief, that scene was not done digitally. It took more than 100 takes, but eventually, with the aid of a special glue, Maguire managed to catch the tray and every single item on it. By doing so, he saved a great deal of money that the production was able to spend on other aspects of the film. 6. Kraven the Hunter was almost in every one of the Spider-Man film series. While Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Venom are considered the 3 biggest Spider-Man villains, it appears the one every filmmaker has wanted to use was Kraven the Hunter. The big game hunter was considered as a villain for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4, but eventually, the filmmakers settled on Vulture before the movie was cancelled. Then, in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Kraven was considered as a villain, and he also would later be part of Sony's Sinister Six film. Even after the Amazing Spider-Man films were cancelled to reboot the character in the MCU, he still was on the filmmaker's mind. Supposedly, Kraven was considered as the villain for Spider-Man No Way Home before the filmmakers settled on the multiverse angel. This likely also would have tied into the version of the movie that Sony wanted to make after cutting ties with Marvel Studios for a brief amount of time. When Sony and Marvel made a deal to continue their deal, Kraven the Hunter was off the table as Sony wanted him for a solo movie. That solo movie, Kraven the Hunter, will star Aaron Taylor Johnson, and is finally set for release on August 30, 2024. However, it appeared Sony originally wanted to do some major cross-promotion as the film was originally set for release on October 6, 2023, but was delayed due to the ongoing SAG-AFTRA strike. That would have been 2 weeks before the release of the Spider-Man to PS5 game, which sees Kraven as a major villain. Clearly, Sony originally wanted October 2023 to be the October of Kraven. 7. Emma Stone wrote Gwen Stacy's graduation speech herself. In The Amazing Spider-Man and its sequel, Emma Stone played Gwen Stacy, Peter Parker's love interest. In the second film, this character was in charge of delivering the graduation speech, and she touched the audience with her inspirational message of inviting the students to live to the fullest. A lesser-known fact about this moving speech is that it was written by none other than Stone herself, which proves that, in addition to being a brilliant actress, she is also a very good writer. 8. Tom Holland attended high school to prepare for his role. Of all the actors who played Spider-Man in each of the film series, the one who came closest to the character's real age is Tom Holland, who was 19 years old when he was cast for the role. Not only that, Holland's films were also the ones that delved most deeply into the high school student experience. In order to prepare the British actor for this experience, John Watts invited him to attend the Bronx High School of Science, enter an alias and impersonate another student. Thus, for a few days, Holland was able to accomplish the same as Peter Parker, to go unnoticed at school without anyone discovering his secret identity. 9. Andrew Garfield was nearly the MCU Spider-Man. When Marvel was developing the first Avengers film, they were still in the process of shaping the direction that the Infinity Saga was heading. In the process of figuring all that out, they were talking to Sony about a potential crossover. The Amazing Spider-Man would be released that same year, and the initial idea was to link the two universes. It was going to start with that version of Oscorp Tower appearing in the New York City skyline in the Avengers. It would have happened, but by the time Sony finished rendering the tower, the skyline in the Avengers had already finished rendering for the movie. This connection would have marked an earlier partnership between the two studios and universes to set Garfield up as their universe's wall crawler. Ultimately, 10. Lizard and Sandman footage in No Way Home was reused. Spider-Man No Way Home famously brought together all 3 generations of the web slinger. Many of the live-action villains also made their return in the film from each character's history. Rhys Ifans and Thomas Hayden Church reprised their role for the film, but they didn't need to be on set since they were completely CGI. They did end up recording new lines for the movie, of course, but when it came to playing their human selves, at the end of the movie, Marvel opted for a different option. The 2 very brief moments there on screen are actually reused footage from The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man 3. With the complicated pandemic production, it made things easier to have them only voice act and reuse the old footage. What is funny is that audiences who went to see Spider-Man No Way Home could have also seen Rhys Ifans in another movie, likely playing on a screen next door, as he played Rasputin in The King's Man, which opened just 5 days after Spider-Man No Way Home. 11. Willem Dafoe's prosthetic teeth. Willem Dafoe gave an iconic performance as the Green Goblin in Spider-Man, effortlessly transforming between his 2 alter egos. While his performance alone was more than enough to distinguish between the 2 personas, Dafoe went the extra mile to physically differentiate them. When he was playing Osborn, he wore a set of fake teeth that looked perfect. When he was playing the Green Goblin, he would use his real teeth. This made the 2 versions stand out even more, representing Osborn's collected nature and the Goblin's disfigured chaos. 12. In Homecoming, Spider-Man never throws a single punch. The MCU had a tough task rebooting Spider-Man for the 3rd time in a decade, making something different that still represented the core of the character. One way that they did this was change the way this version of Peter Parker fought. Throughout the entire runtime, he never throws a single punch at any of his enemies. He relies on his webs in combat since he's still inexperienced and avoids hand-to-hand fighting entirely. As he progressed in his trilogy, he started to punch more, especially in No Way Home, but in his first solo outing, he avoided them entirely. 13. MJ was cut from The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has often been criticized for stuffing too much into one movie and setting up a sequel, but at one point, there was supposed to be even more. While the film focused on Peter and Gwen's relationship, when the movie was being developed, the idea was to introduce Mary Jane in a small role to set up her future with Peter. They even went as far as to announce that actress Shailene Woodley had been cast in the role. At the end of the day, director Mark Webb decided against it to not take away from Gwen's story. At the heart of the movie, a brief glimpse of Woodley can still be seen at the end of the movie as she is in the cafe when Rhino attacks. 14. Jake Gyllenhaal could have been Spider-Man. Maguire, Garfield, and Holland were the actors chosen to portray Spider-Man in the movies. However, there were many other famous actors who came very close to playing the superhero, among them Jake Gyllenhaal. After Raimi's Spider-Man, Gyllenhaal almost replaced Maguire in the second installment. This replacement was due to the fact that the original actor had a back injury and, at the same time, was not happy with the money he was offered to reprise his role. Eventually, they reached an agreement, and Gyllenhaal never got to be Spider-Man. Still, several years later, he finally managed to join the world of Spider-Man, as in 2019, he played the villainous Quentin Beck in Spider-Man, Far From Home and Last. Number 15. All of Spider-Man's star couples dated in real life. This is a very curious detail that spanned the 3-film series, and it involves the romantic relationships between the main characters. While filming each of the productions, Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, and Tom Holland and Zenda fell in love with one another. The latter are still together to this day. As a matter of fact, producer Amy Pascal, who worked on both The Amazing Spider-Man and Holland's Spider-Man, advised everyone.
Row 18, plot 20.